Hello, this is Julie DeMauro from the Regulatory Intelligence Department in New York. I'm joined today by Randall Mikkelsen, North American Managing Editor for Thomson Reuters Regulatory Intelligence. Welcome, Randall. We are here to talk about the state of regulatory reform in 2018. That's the title of the annual special report by Regulatory Intelligence that looks ahead to the coming year in financial regulation and compliance. Randall, this year it looks like the United States is kind of going its own way in terms of regulatory reform. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, that's right, it is. The administration under President Donald Trump has laid out a very ambitious agenda. You could call it deregulation, relaxing financial rules. In the meantime, the European Union is charging ahead with some major new regulatory initiatives. And in Asia, the regulators are working hard to address the challenges of financial technology, things like Bitcoin, blockchain, digital financial services.
Interesting, but isn't Congress deadlocked?
Well, that's right. The tax cut was something of an exception. Big changes in like the Dodd-Frank regulatory structure of the post-financial crisis era, those will probably require big votes in Congress. But the Trump administration is learning that they can do a lot of things on their own bureaucratically. So the Treasury Department's laid out a big agenda for changing in financial services regulation. The Securities and Exchange Commission and the Labor Department are working together to replace the Obama-era fiduciary rule that a lot of people in the financial industry opposed, and groups like organizations like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they've frozen rulemaking in place, and they've also written kind of a new mission for themselves. So there is a big change going on there. And nonetheless, Congress can act as well in some limited areas where there's bipartisan support, such as bank capital standards that they'll be taking a look at probably.
Okay, so in this deregulatory atmosphere, can compliance officers kind of breathe a sigh of relief?
Well, not necessarily. Remember, we talked about Europe charging ahead. Some of those initiatives will influence U.S. firms, especially those with European businesses. So there's a new data protection rule in Europe regarding the individual privacy, individual personal information, and companies with information on European clients will have to abide by those, and they're pretty strict rules. So that's an agenda item. There's a new system of allocating costs of investment research that, again, U.S. companies with business in Europe will have to comply with. So there are those rules. Then in the United States, some of the state regulators are moving to pick up the slack. They're keeping an eye on securities regulation. They are also taking another look at reasserting more control over insurance services. So there's that. And even at the federal level, there's some strict new rules coming into force on what banks need to know about the ownership of their client businesses. These are kind of anti-money laundering type financial sanctions controls, and there will probably be close watch on how they do that. So no, they can't really breathe easy, but there's a different set of rules maybe.
Now, you mentioned earlier about virtual currency and fintech in general. Thinking of distributed ledger technology and virtual currency and digital financial services firms, can you speak to those?
Yeah, during the financial crisis, a lot of these so-called fintech businesses, the online lenders and insurance companies, the blockchains, those things were developing while regulators and the big financial institutions were preoccupied with recovering from the financial crisis and implementing those regulations. Now they're catching up to financial services technology, or fintech as it's known. And so the regulators are moving to address that. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which has authority over futures markets, is trying to create an environment where some of these industries can try things out and flourish. and the Securities and Exchange Commission, they also want to encourage capital formation, but they're keeping a very close eye on it, and they're cracking down on companies that, well, like the initial coin offerings that have become somewhat in vogue, but the SEC views as unregulated securities. So they're moving to address those issues, and you'll likely see a lot of action this year on that.
Excellent. This is all in the special report. Can you remind us where to find it?
Yeah, the best way is to go on a search engine and look up Thomson Reuters State of Regulatory Reform 2018.
Thank you so much for your insights, Randall.
Thanks, Julie.
And thanks to our audience for listening in today. Please check out risk.thomsonreuters.com, where you can get a taste of our daily offerings and articles, learn more about our special reports, regional events, and webinars.